Hey, just in time for the holidays, what if you didn't have to worry about any of that credit card debt? If you're feeling stuck making the minimum payments and you don't want to have to put Christmas on a credit card, we can help at savewithconrad.com. We routinely help our listeners save hundreds of dollars a month. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. It's finally happening. Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to Grilling JR with the voice of your childhood, Mr. Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm better. I'm better today than I've been in a long time. Feel good. I'm glad to be back on the air with you guys.
We are so excited to be in your presence today. We've been missing you here. We've been playing some remixes, and I've been getting peppered on social media. We're tired of the remixes. We miss JR, and I'm glad that we're finally back and able to record. And I can't help but notice you're sporting an Oklahoma shirt, and your background looks a little different. I don't reckon you're in Jacksonville Beach right now, are you?
No, I actually new news. I sold my condo in Jacksonville, so we'll be closing on that in a few days. But we got our money out of it, and somebody's going to be very happy with what they're buying. So it's going to be good. I'm excited about it.
Well, I'll be honest. I wasn't worried about you being able to sell a beautiful beach condo, but I'm super excited that you're back home at home where you've got this great support system and a house you've owned like since the 90s, right?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Quite a while. I feel good though. I feel good about being home. I feel healthier than I felt in a long time. I got plenty of energy, and I'm thankful to be back on the air.
Well, we're excited that you're back on the air with us. And I think the next logical question is, now that we're back in the saddle and doing podcasts, and we'll talk about what we've got lined up in the coming weeks shortly, but do you think we're going to be calling some wrestling again with AEW sooner rather than later?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the plan. In the next few weeks. So, yeah, I'm excited about that opportunity.
Well, we're excited about it too. As folks are listening to this, last night was blood and guts in the Greensboro Coliseum. And you and I don't yet know what's going to happen because we're just a few minutes away from the bell, and we're going to be sure that we're done in time to be in front of our television sets to watch that. But the War Games style matchup, man, that's got to have a soft spot in your heart because, man, that thing's been around since what, 87, something like that?
I don't know the exact date. I know I was excited about it. I'm a big fan of the concept, and from the day it was announced and the concept was discussed, I was excited. I just think War Games is just such a great concept. It's got so many possibilities and so many options that's it makes it exciting. It makes it unpredictable. So all good, man. All good. War Games is one of my favorite concepts in all of wrestling.
And that's a Dustyism, right? Isn't that a Dusty creation?
Yeah, Dusty created the War Games, and it's a great idea. I'm not saying that all of his ideas are great because all of anybody's ideas isn't great. However, it felt good from the beginning, and we had the talent was great. The Horsemen against the baby faces, the established baby faces. It just had a good feel to it from the beginning. It had a great look. There's a great picture of it that Bull put up, Bull Ramus, and I remember that night like it was yesterday.
I know you're kind of an old school guy, and I kind of like the old school way of wrestling too. The WWF way was always, back in the day, they allowed, the heels or the baby faces to escape the cage. Of course, we see the War Games cage was not just a cage big enough for one ring, but for two, but it also had a top. What did you think about adding the top to the cage for War Games, Jim?
I liked it because it made it look so much different than a regular cage match or a regular match of any kind. but that top, that roof made it very unique, made it very different, and I liked it.
Well, we all love the war games, and we're excited that you guys got to enjoy Blood and Guts last night. Jim and I are about to enjoy it shortly, but the other match that's happening tonight, as we're recording, that I know is going to be on both of our radar is Hangman Adam Page in a Falls Count Anywhere match against Powerhouse Hobbs. And I think it's non-title, but still, the idea that a guy we both think a lot of in Powerhouse Hobbs, he's working against the world champion. This is a big opportunity for Hobbs, is it not?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's his biggest opportunity to date in his pro career, in my opinion. And that, I think those guys match up very well. Should be a hell of an exciting match. Too hard to call. I figure that Hangman Page will win it somehow, some way. I might be wrong. I'm not pulling for him, yay or nay, but I'm a big fan, like you said, Conrad, of Powerhouse Hobbs. He's a fine young man. He's got a lot of character. He's got lots of integrity. He's a great representative of AEW on many fronts. So I'm looking forward to his performance tonight, and hopefully that he'll deliver like he wants to, because I know he's very, very excited about this opportunity. And that's how he's looking at it, as an opportunity. Win, lose, or draw.
When you think about Greensboro Coliseum, you know, it's got to be Mid-Atlantic and maybe more specifically Starrcade that comes to mind first, right?
Yeah, probably. For me, it's about I don't know. It's about the memories of AEW and the sale match. It's really it was a great concept, and the chemistry of the talents thus far has been excellent. I don't remember any match of that kind that has stunk. They've all been competitive and hard hitting and exciting. I expect more tonight or last night.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes we should record on a day after a big event, because we can be a lot more precise and a lot more exact,
sure.
you know. And that wouldn't bother me a bit. Moving it another day on special occasions or not is something I'd be in favor of.
Yeah, why not? We can look at that for the new year for 2026. We're looking forward to a lot of great new stuff we're going to be doing here with Jim Ross on the podcast in the coming year. But I do want to take just a moment to acknowledge not just the Starrcade history in that building that from last night, Greensboro Coliseum, but it's probably really high on your list too in your AEW career, because the last time AEW was in the building was Sting's last match. And I got to think, you know, you're probably closer to the end of your career than you are the beginning.
Yep.
Maybe not. Maybe you call it another 50 years. I'd be for it. But when you think about your favorite memories in AEW, Sting's last match has got to make the list, right?
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely, Conrad. That's a no-brainer. And he delivered in that match. You know, everybody was wondering how it's going to be. He's not in a tag. It's not a multiple person match. It's a one-on-one match, as best I recall. And that was a special night, without a doubt. I've been in the Greensboro Coliseum on many occasions. Not that many that were completely sold out, and people were turned away. And that was the situation in the case the last time we were there. So I'm Greensboro's got nothing but good memories for me, I can tell you.
Not to correct the voice of wrestling, but it was in fact a tag match. It was Sting and Darby against the Young Bucks, but you're not wrong.
That's right.
All eyes were on Sting that night. And the other guy who was there a year ago, or gosh, I can't believe it was 18 months ago now, it was March of last year, was the Nature Boy. And he's back in Greensboro for Blood and Guts, this time with his pal Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I love that they're bringing out some Mid-Atlantic classics and celebrating the legends. I don't think anybody does that as well as AEW. Like, they always are sure to give their flowers to Mr. Crockett when they're in Charlotte, or Flair and Steamboat in Greensboro. Like, I like the the callback to yesteryear, if you will.
I do too. And I think that's all attributed to Tony Khan and the kind of fan that he is. He hasn't forgotten his past, and he appreciates and values the past. And I think that's important for any promoter, because that you don't take your eye off what the fan wants if you have that philosophy. So and it's all about what the fan wants and wants to see, and that's what we have in this situation. I just think it's going to be a great show and a great match, and I might be eating crow when it's all said and done, but I don't think so. If you've got a chance to watch it, buy it, watch it, and I think you're going to be very pleased with it.
I have no doubt. I can't wait. You know, not only do we have blood and guts as folks are listening to this last night, but next week it's Full Gear. AEW seemingly always delivers on pay-per-view. I'm sure this will be no exception. You can get that pay-per-view on Amazon or HBO Max or anywhere else you enjoy pay-per-view. It's presented by DC Comics too. So I'm not even sure exactly what that means. Maybe there's going to be a fun flair, but I'm looking forward to that pay-per-view. It may be too soon for Jim to be at that one, but I'm sure it'll be sooner rather than later.
Right.
Jim, I do want to ask some other wrestling news that's happened since you and I were together. John Cena has checked his last box, if you will, in the WWF. He won the Intercontinental title this past Monday night. It was his last match in Boston. He beat Dominic Mysterio. They're teasing that this coming Monday on Monday Night Raw will be his last appearance and his last match in New York. And now there's lots of speculation about, as we move closer to Survivor Series and the Saturday night's main event with his final opponent, the WWE is doing a tournament. So they're trying to do everything they can to celebrate John Cena. And I know that you've obviously been a big part of his career for a long, long time. Have you had a chance to catch any of the recent Cena stuff? And if so, what'd you think about it?
Yeah, just because I'm not on television, and I've been on the injured or sick list, whatever. It doesn't mean that I'm not been watching the programming. I've been watching all the programming from all the companies because I'm a wrestling fan, and I'm here right now as to record this. I'm in Norman, Oklahoma. So my place in Jacksonville is sold. I'm not sure when it's closing, but it's sold, which is a great relief. And I got what I wanted out of it, which is another great relief. I'm grateful. So yeah, I think we got some big plans for the future for this show, and I'm excited about that. Quite frankly, very excited.
Man, I'm excited too. I'll be honest. I wasn't sure when we'd be able to pin you down and record again, but I'm just so happy to hear that you're feeling better and that you're home in Oklahoma. And I know this is one of your favorite times of the year because we're just a couple of weeks away from some cornbread dressing, by God. And every weekend it's Boomer Sooner, one after another. And it just so happens that this weekend, and I can't help but wonder, is this why JR's coming back? Oklahoma is going to be playing Alabama, and it's happening in Tuscaloosa. What's your prediction this weekend, Jim?
I'm well, obviously, you know who I'm pulling for.
Sure.
The Sooners. I just don't know if our offense is good enough to maintain a lead, get a lead, and maintain a lead. I think it's going to be very close. Oklahoma's got a great defense, but same respect, Alabama's got a very solid offense. So it's two of the greatest programs in the history of college football going one-on-one on Saturday. I'm pumped about that. How do you not get? If you're a football fan and you're a fan of either one of those schools, like Conrad and I are, you can't wait. This is a hell of a game, and it makes anything else that's played after that kind of anticlimactic, in my opinion. But it'll be something. It would upset the world if Oklahoma beats Nebraska, and somehow finds their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, Oklahoma comes in against this game against Alabama this weekend, ranked number 11. So number 11 will be traveling to number 4. And Alabama, as a reminder, if you're not necessarily a big sports bettor, maybe you don't know this, but usually the home team gets a 3-point advantage sort of automatically if all things are equal. Well, Alabama this weekend is a 6-point favorite. Jim, I think this one could be so tight. I might take Oklahoma in the points at +6.
Probably not a bad bet. Probably
Yeah.
not a bad bet, Conrad. To be honest with you, but playing at home in a game of this magnitude, I think really gives Alabama an advantage. And for your sake, I hope they play well. I don't hope they win, but I hope they play well, and it's a great game.
Well, we're looking forward to a great game this weekend. I'm sure we're going to be in regular communication. Do you want to share anything else you've been up to? I know you've had some time away from the pods and time away from AEW. Have you had a chance to read any books or catch up on any programs or visit with any family, or what's been going on in JR's life for the past several weeks?
Family's a big deal. My kids are providing me great food. They're delivering it. My youngest daughter is especially a good cook. She's got a apple cobbler in my refrigerator right now that I haven't started on, but I will. But she brings me food about once or twice a week, and my fridge is full of good stuff. So I've been living the life of Riley. My kids have been taking great care of me. They say it's always best for a dad to have daughters. I didn't really understand that wholeheartedly until now, but with my daughters coming over and cleaning the house and going to the grocery store, I mean, I got it made, and I'm very happy. And it's great to have good kids. I got beautiful kids who are absolutely fantastic to their dad, and I appreciate that very much. So life is good, Connie. Life is good. I'm healthy. I had a cardiologist appointment yesterday, and he's pleased with what he saw so far. I hadn't had any issues with my heart, but just a matter of checking the boxes and making sure everything's cool. Pardon me. So it's life is good, man. Life is good. I'm alive. A few months ago at this time, I wasn't so sure about the outcome, but here I am, and here we are, and we're going to have a great year of podcasting. I can promise you.
Anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Find your perfect pair with Tecovas. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everyone. We're talking generational ranchers and lifelong cowboys to guys like me, first-time boot buyers. Tecovas boots are handcrafted with over 200 meticulous steps for broken-in comfort that comes right out of the box. And their in-store experience is unparalleled with expert staff and complimentary beverages and even customizations. How about bringing it home this holiday season with a gift from the West? You see, at Tecovas, you'll find comfort and joy in their exact size, from cowhide to goat to exotic leathers like ostrich and caiman. And how about this? Whether it's their first pair or their 50th pair, Tecovas has plenty of stars to put under the tree. That's right. Beyond boots, Tecovas has a wide selection of men's and women's apparel. We're talking things like bags and fine leather goods, even belts, wallets, and more. And with Tecovas premium broken in leathers, they're comfortable from the moment you pull them on. And I love that because now you don't have to worry about breaking them in over the holidays and seeing that extended family member, but being uncomfortable the whole time, just thinking, I want to get home and take the boots off. You see, you don't have to worry about that with Tecovas because the Tecovas heritage made cowboy boots are crafted in over 200 steps, all done by hand in Leon, Mexico. From the first stitch to the final lemonwood peg, Tecovas boots are made in over 200 steps by hand. Tecovas knows that y'all means all. So whatever your size, style, or need, you're going to find your perfect boot. And again, what makes it so special about Tecovas is they feel right out of the box. And they've got over 50 different Tecovas stores coast to coast. So there's never been a better time to visit your local store than right now during the holidays. It's a great escape from the holiday chaos. You can stop in, slow down, grab a specialty pour, and find that perfect gift. Their expert and friendly staff are going to be at your service to answer any questions and help you pick out that perfect pair of boots. And Tecovas offers complimentary boot branding and customizations, so you leave knowing that you've made that perfect gift truly one of a kind. I have to admit, I gave these to my dad last year for Christmas. It was the first pair of boots he'd had in forever. He wears them to the office all the time. He loves them so much, he got a second pair, and he actually had an insurance claim in his house earlier this year. They had a busted pipe. And when the claims adjuster came out, he said, "Wait, are those Tecovas boots? Well, we got to get those replaced for you. I know those are nice boots." Think about that. Right now, you can get 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr when you sign up for email and text. That's a no brainer. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/grillingjr. That's tecovas.com/grillingjr. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west. Yeah, speaking of which, I do want to talk about some things we're going to be trying in the coming weeks here on Grilling GR. But before we do, another major piece of news broke since you and I have been together that I know is going to be of particular interest to you. For a lot of people listening, myself included, you were their first real exposure with commentary for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the hardcore sickos like me, we've seen on VHS compilations going back to the mid 90s matches from New Japan, but respectfully, the commentary was always in Japanese. So we had no freaking idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But when you started doing commentary on Fight, we could actually watch Wrestle Kingdom. And of course, we learned who some of these iconic characters were. But I can be honest, I don't know that I would have watched that very first New Japan Wrestle Kingdom show if it weren't for your commentary. But I was familiar with you, and I knew that you would make this palatable and I could understand it and maybe catch up and fill the gaps and add context to the matches we were seeing. Well, Wrestle Kingdom is not that far away. We're less than 2 months away. And it was just announced that Tanahashi's last opponent has been revealed as Okada. And this will be, I believe, their 18th time they've met. But way back when you were calling matches for New Japan, and certainly when there's been all this forbidden door opportunity with AEW and New Japan, you got to call a lot of matches for Okada and Tanahashi. Mm-hmm. What do you think about those guys doing it one last time at Wrestle Kingdom?
It reminds me of the booking of Flair and Steamboat. They're two highly skilled guys that have amazing chemistry and respect for each other. They really do have great respect for each other. And I think that's something that I always hang my hat on when I'm wearing it. There's no reason it shouldn't be phenomenal, considering the atmosphere, when it is, where it is, and all that good stuff. So if you're a wrestling fan, knowing the history of these two guys to any level, knowing that this is going to be their last time, and as a perfectionist as they both are, and as much as they love competition, I can tell you that I think they'll have a classic. I think it'll be one of the best matches of the year in any promotion, including this one.
In just singles action, Dave Meltzer has given them 5 5-star matches, just Tanahashi versus Okada, and 1 5.5 stars. If you want to see that 5.5 stars, it went down on May 4th, 2018. So just a few months before the very first All In, May 4th, 2018, 7 years ago, is the first time that they had a 5.5 star match, which is just crazy. But 2 of the best to ever do it. We know that Tanahashi behind the scenes is going to continue to help run New Japan Pro Wrestling. But for some of our younger listeners or people who've really just grown up watching the American product, can you give us some context on how significant Tanahashi is to the Japanese fan base?
Well, take away Sting from WCW back in the day, take away Flair, Steamboat. I'm leaving out somebody that's prominent, but it's something that had to happen. It was inevitable. This many of them that they've had one-on-ones together might be a little bit more than people would have imagined when it all got started. But we're lucky that we're alive today and living in an era where both those guys are still working and they're still healthy. So we come along at the right place at the right time, in my opinion, Conrad. And for any wrestling fan this loves the art, the psychology, the execution, this is a match that you just don't want to miss.
I can't wait for Wrestle Kingdom. It's going to be here before we know it. I know next week we'll be talking about Full Gear, and we might be doing something else kind of fun next week. I've put a bug in JR's ear and he's game to try it. I thought, hey, why don't we take a look at some of the best matches in wrestling history that didn't have his commentary on it? And perhaps we start with one that didn't have any commentary at all. We go way back and we talk about one of the most significant matches in Samoa Joe's history. I'm talking, of course, about a match that happened over 20 years ago. Samoa Joe versus Kenta Kobashi. We're going to be visiting that here in the coming weeks, right here on Grilling JR. And if you've seen the match, you know how fabulous it is. Now imagine how much better it could be with the voice of professional wrestling on it. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to be able to show you that match here, thanks to our friend Tony Khan and AEW and certainly Ring of Honor, who are going to allow us to watch that match here together, and you hear JR's commentary on it. So it's a single screen experience. You won't need to watch it somewhere else and listen to us here. You'll get to enjoy it all together here. The only place you'll find that, though, is on our YouTube channel. Go right now to grillingjr.com, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notifications bell. That way you'll know when we've posted something new or when we're live, and you can interact with Jim. But Grilling JR and good old JR are here to stay, and we're coming back with a bang when we take a look at Kobashi and Samoa Joe.
Great
Got to
match.
be two of your favorite performers of all time right there, Jim.
They beat the shit out of each other, Conrad, to put it very bluntly.
Yes.
For anybody that walks away saying, that wrestling's all showbiz, right? Well, there's a lot of showbiz involved, but there's also a lot of physicality and a lot of athleticism. And these two cats come in with a little burr under their saddle. They both were very competitive that night. And I think you're going to love watching it, folks. Next week, I'll do my very best. I want to try to give it a pay-per-view main event call. I can tell you that.
Stay tuned and tell your friends about what we got coming here on Grilling JR. Kobashi, Samoa Joe. It's going to be outstanding. Of course, next weekend is Full Gear. And we're, of course, going to be talking about John Cena's last match and everything else in the coming weeks. But I want to give a little plug here because I know that Grilling JR may have been in, well, remixes. Maybe we'll call it reruns. But something that didn't go out of fashion and it never closed, it never has a hiatus, is jrsbbq.com. And I know the secret sauce over there is our man, Stephen Link. But if you don't know, now you know. These are the perfect stocking stuffers, and they're available for you right now at jrsbbq.com. I can't believe this is real, but JR actually has some jerky in stock right now too. He's been sold out of that forever. He's got a deal going for 20% off your seasonings, 40% off the remaining gift boxes. They've got family packs on sale. And did I mention that they've got a garage sale for autographed books? You can get some for under $20. You heard me. An autographed book signed by JR for under $20. These are complete books. You don't want to miss it. They've got a hookup deal for you right now at jrsbbq.com. It costs nothing to look, is what Jim always says.
That's
but
right.
if you go ahead and you get your order in now, it'll make it in plenty of time for the holidays. And Jim, this is a go-to for every wrestling fan this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we personalize them. If you buy one, I'll say, hi, Conrad. Best wishes. Your pal. I'm kidding. But it'll be personalized. And I enjoy doing that because I know then somebody's got a gift for life. They're gonna, I don't know where they're going to put it, on their bookshelf or coffee table or wherever. But we're serious about that. And now that I'm back in Oklahoma, we can get an order one day and sign it the next and send it out the next. I mean, this is a quick turnaround. It's the best customer service that we've ever had. And the primary reason is because I'm back home where I can work.
You know, I didn't even think about that, but now that you're home, the autograph loop, boy, that just got a whole heck of a lot easier. There's no more transport. There's no more shipping. Customer service is better than ever right now. And as a friend of mine used to say, Jim, I think that means business is about to pick up.
I think you're right, Conrad. I think you're right. I hope you're right.
Well, I, for one, am glad that you're tougher than a government mule. We're so glad to have you back here on the show. And I'm so excited that we're going to be calling matches, or you are, in the coming weeks here, because I think that's the way people want to see you and think of you and do your thing at your best. Man, why not let you call some of the greatest matches in wrestling that you didn't call? We'll be doing that in the coming weeks here. Hit that subscribe button right now at grillingjr.com. You want to watch the matches with us. It's going to be incredible. You won't just hear it. You can see it as well at grillingjr.com. And Jim, we're going to throw to an interview that I did earlier this week that no one's ever heard before, but it's with a guy that if you haven't met, I know you'll love his work. His name's James Dixon. And he wrote a book. He's actually got a trilogy of books about 95, 96, and 97 in the WWF. But he's got what I think a profile piece on the most interesting and crucial year in wrestling history was, certainly from a WWF perspective. And that's 1992. Now, that's right before you come into the company. But you've got so much stuff that happens in the year 92, Jim. You've got Flair coming in and winning the Rumble. You've got the tease for the last match for Hulk Hogan's career at WrestleMania 8. You've got the Ultimate Warrior returning, and then later in the year having a drug issue, and he's gone. And that's at the worst possible time because of the Zahorian trial and the Ring Boy scandal and Rita Chatterton. Like, there's so much legally happening, but it feels like Hogan and Vince are fractured a little bit. He's off making a movie. We're trying with Flair, but he has an equilibrium problem, so he can't work. And we put the belt on Bret Hart, and we lost our Survivor Series main event. We've got to pay off the Lloyds of London for Mr. Perfect. And we're going to bring over Lex Luger and be launching the WBF at a time when there's a steroid trial in focus, and Nails is going to attack Vince like the greatest SummerSlam ever, SummerSlam 92. This is a crazy year for the WWF, to say the least, don't you think?
Oh, hell yeah. It's very, I hope we don't have any more like them.
Right.
For those of us that are working in administration and trying to make decisions, it makes it pretty damn hard when you're trying to play catch up. I'm trying to do payroll. I'm trying to book the live events, handle contract negotiations and things of that nature. It's probably the busiest time of my career. I had fun. I stayed busy. I love what I was doing, but boy, it was a hectic time, and things are always changing. And normally in pro wrestling, when you have major changes, they're generally, not always, but generally, they're just not. They don't last long, thank God. But they happen more often than they should. So I don't want to go back to those days and experience the things that I experienced and that our team did, our company did. But there's just so many exciting things to talk about and to go over and to relive and to play out. It's just a tremendous time in my career, my life.
Well, we never do this, but I thought this was such an interesting look at a fascinating period. I thought it made sense. So we're going to be joined momentarily by Kenny McIntosh and Mr. Dixon, and they're going to break down some things you've never heard before. So it's not just going to be an extended commercial for the book. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they want you to go buy the book. Lord knows I did. I'm reading it this weekend, cover to cover. But they're going to drop some nuggets here in just a few minutes, Jim, that I thought, man, I'm one of the biggest wrestling nerds around, and I had no idea. I learned a lot, and I think you guys will too. The name of the book is called Titan Shrinking, and we're going to be joined momentarily here by Kenny McIntosh and the author of the fabulous book. It's available now on Amazon, or if you've got a Kindle subscription, I think you can just click a button and you're in business. But Jim, I can't lie. I'm so fired up about next week and seeing you do your thing, calling some classic wrestling. I'm looking forward to it.
That's good. Anybody's got any notes or any biographical things on Kobashi? And I got a pretty good handle on Joe, but don't be reluctant to send me things that you think might help me do a better broadcast. I'm not standing on ceremony, I can promise you. And why wouldn't I want to know what the fans want to hear, what they want to see, how they want to experience this? So that's kind of where I am on that deal, and I'm pumped about it. I'm pumped about next week. It'll be big, and we'll be back on the air with that show on Wednesday, right, Chuck? Right, Conrad?
You and I will record it on Wednesday, but it maybe in the new year we'll start trying to record on Thursday so we can react to some things that happen on Dynamite. Maybe that makes sense. But yes, we will be doing this next Wednesday. It'll drop everywhere next Thursday, and we want to hear from you. We know we're starting with Samoa Joe and Kobashi, but after that, what match would you like to hear Jim do commentary on? Drop it in the comments below here on YouTube, or let us know over on social media. Just use the hashtag GrillingJR. You can tweet myself, you can tweet JR, or you can tweet our show account. We're going to list all of our different handles right here for you. That's at JR Grilling on Twitter, at JR Grilling on Instagram. Over on Facebook, it's Grilling JR. But the best place to go on YouTube is Grilling JR on YouTube. So be sure to check it out and use the hashtag Grilling JR and let us know what you want Jim to call in the coming weeks here on Grilling JR. But next week, man, I'm fired up. I've got my research. I've got my notes. I've just watched this match not long ago. I can't wait for Samoa Joe and Kobashi. It's going to be a blast next week right here, Jim.
I love to watch other guys beat the shit out of each other, Conrad.
Yes. Yes.
Don't you? And I'll sit back and talk about it.
We're going to do it next week. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned. Coming up in just a second, we've got Kenny McIntosh from Inside the Ropes and the author of the brand new book, Titan Shrinking. We'll be right back. Got to talk about our friends over at Stopbox. Listen up. If you own a handgun for self-defense, your storage likely fits into one of two frustrating categories. It's either locked away, meaning it's safe, but it's out of reach in case of an emergency, or it's unsecured, which means you've left it vulnerable to anyone. Stopbox USA saw the problem and designed a groundbreaking solution known as the Stopbox Pro. And with the Stopbox Pro, you'll never have to choose between security and readiness again. Its ingenious push-button locking system gives you fast, reliable access when every second matters without the hassle of keys or reliance on batteries. It's 100% mechanical, so it works every time, no power needed. And with the Stopbox USA, you can finally have both security and readiness. The Stopbox Pro's mechanical keyless system allows for fast, secure access without the risk of fumbling for keys when every second counts. It's also battery-free, so you never have to worry about your lock not working. And with the holiday coming up, there's never been a better time to upgrade your home security or give the gift of peace of mind to someone you care about. Whether it's for your own nightstand or a loved one who takes safety seriously, the Stopbox Pro delivers the perfect balance of protection and preparedness. All of the Stopbox products are proudly made here in the USA, so you don't have to worry about any sort of tariffs or anything like that. And the TSA has approved the Stopbox Pro. Yeah, the Stopbox Pro is TSA compliant, just in time for your travel this holiday season. And if you're looking for that perfect gift, they've got more than just the Stopbox Pro. They've got the vehicle safe, the chamber lock, and other essential gear designed to help you be more prepared and protected wherever you are. You see, the holidays just got a little safer and a whole lot more affordable. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners are getting this crazy good deal. Not only can you get 10% off your entire order when you use the code JR10 at stopboxusa.com, but check this out. They're giving you a buy one, get one free on their Stopbox Pro. That's right. You get 10% off and a free Stopbox Pro when you use the code JR10 at stopboxusa.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to adfreeshows.com. And boy, do we have a tag team combination I'm excited to present today. First up, you know him from Inside the Ropes, Kenny McIntosh. Kenny, how are you, man?
I'm good. We both survived The Undertaker, and we're still here to tell the tale.
I'm so excited about it. I'm delighted to have you on the program. We've been friends for a long time. It's cool that we actually get to do something on camera together here. And man, you've got a special guest lined up for us. I know it's somebody that's near and dear to you. Tell us who's joining us today, Kenny.
So this is a man who has been sort of forced unwillingly out of writer retirement. He wrote three, best-selling wrestling books on WWF 1995, 1996, and 1997, which are all available on Amazon. Shattered, Screwed, Sinking, Shattered, and Screwed. Titan, Shrinking, Shattered, and Screwed. Trying to remember them all in one go is quite difficult, but that is the titles. And I've pestered him for a decade to do more. And now he has written a book on 1992 WWF, first part of a trilogy, James Dixon. So thanks for coming out of retirement, James. Appreciate it.
Thank you for forcing me into it, man.
Well, what a great topic, Mr. Dixon. I got to tell you, 1992 is a year that is just filled with major stories from a pro wrestling perspective, certainly from a Vince McMahon and WWE perspective, because you've got the controversies that people remember about, and then maybe the ones that they don't think about. I think a lot of us think of that year and they immediately go to, oh, that was the year that we should have had Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair in the main event of WrestleMania. And then maybe later in the year, they remember, well, that's when they had that special SummerSlam, the biggest SummerSlam of all. And then there's been lots of stories about the main event, about what was supposed to happen, and did someone forget what was supposed to happen? And then allegedly people went MIA. Maybe Ric Flair had a sky high credit card bill. And maybe a couple of months after that, we had a big plan for Survivor Series, but there's a sharp left turn, and we're just kind of scratching the surface, right?
Oh, I mean, you've summed it up really. It was a wild year in every respect because it's such a strange juxtaposition, 92, because the WWF's really struggling in America. Vince is putting out fires left, right, and center with scandals, sex scandals, steroid scandals, the drama with Hogan leaving. That's a big guy to replace, right, at the time. And he's having to go without Hogan for the first time since he took over. And all of these fires getting put out on a weekly basis, and America really struggling to draw on pay-per-view in the buildings. And then in the UK, it's the biggest it's ever been. It's, there's this huge boom, and SummerSlam's an enormous show, obviously, but it's more than SummerSlam. The WWF was mainstream over here, and it never had been prior to that. So you've got this really strange year where it's terrible on one hand, and on the other, it's never been more popular to this day, I would probably argue. And trying to piece all of that together and make it make sense in a flowing narrative was the challenge that Kenny set for me.
Well, it's funny because I'm like one of the first things. So I've been trying to say to James, because he was kind of like, is there anything in doing another year, right? Like the big thing we talked about was you were like, well, I don't really want to write about 98 because it was all great stuff. Like, where's the drama? Where's
Who'd
the
care, right?
interest? But then, the more we talked about 92, it was like, okay, there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did a chapter, right? And he was like, okay, I'm going to send you this chapter. If it's BS, just tell me. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't tell me it's good. And the part that he sent me was about the sort of contextualizing where Shawn Michaels was at the beginning of 1992 by going back
Okay.
and telling the story of, the 87 brief run that they had when then Jimmy Jack Funk was a dick in the bar. Therefore, their run lasted like a night. So then they come back the next year. And it's like everything is contextualized and given this kind of narrative to get you to where you are. And I was like, it's great. I mean, you're not going to believe me, James, but it's great. But I think that to me, one of the most interesting parts of the book is the kind of, what's the word? The dissension of the Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon relationship. Like one of the things that James, you could talk, throw it to you, but Vince had a party in August of '91, and which, by the way, Jesse Ventura was at.
Wow.
Even though
Right.
he left
A week before he sued him.
like the invitation's there. Jesse's name's on the invitation. He was there, and it's like a roast of Vince. And yeah, I mean, tell people what happened because it's
Sure.
fascinating.
So essentially, it was Linda had organized it for Vince. I think it was both his birthday and a celebration of, I think, 25 years in the business. And the idea, it was some like black tie event, and it was, I think, in New York, and all these guests from wrestling and outside of wrestling as well, and these different, wrestlers putting him over, including Jesse. And Hogan was supposed to be one of them. And Hogan ends up not giving any speech whatsoever, which all the wrestlers were like, well, that's a little bit strange. And then towards the end of the night, Mean Gene goes around with a mic, just kind of get, little vox pops from people. And he goes to Hogan, and Hogan just like waves him away, doesn't want to talk to him.
Oh.
And everyone's just like, whoa, something's going on here, right? And so the relationship was really breaking down. And the whole sort of story of the book is Vince, and leading into the next trilogy really is, how does Vince recover from losing Hogan, and what does he do to build it back up again? Because he tried a lot in 92, a lot, and and it's when it sort of starts getting a little bit silly with some of the gimmicks and characters. And, it's not until he gets to 98 where he finally really does find something with Austin and Rock. And it's all about that. The subtitle could almost be, desperately seeking Hogan. So
Oh,
that
okay.
it almost was, but and yeah, it's just a really sort of fascinating insight into sort of how Vince, what Vince was dealing with and what his reactions were, and how he tried to, counter losing Hogan and the various different methods he came up with.
Well,
I
we know
mean,
that
at
year
one,
starts with maybe the most popular and famous and beloved WrestleMania of all time, or not WrestleMania, but Royal Rumble. I mean, everybody loves the '92 Royal Rumble,
Yeah, right.
but I think it's also probably the most, at least at that point, most memorable SummerSlam ever, and it still might be to this day, right, Kenny?
yeah, I mean that SummerSlam is like, I mean over here anyway, it's like you could do any SummerSlam today. You could bring The Rock over, you could have him finally right the wrong and have Cody beat him, and people in the UK would still be like, well, it's not Bulldog and Brett. It's like that's
Yeah.
always going to be the thing.
Hmm.
So I mean, my friend Jamie and I, who are like rain men about wrestling, that's our kind of topic, especially 90s wrestling. We're always fascinated by the original card for WrestleMania 8 or the original card for SummerSlam 92 or Survivor Series 92. And everything was changing all the time. And there was stuff in this book that I didn't know, which I always think if you can get me to learn stuff, that's a good sign. Like one of the things that I think anybody who's watching or listening should really check out, because when you watch this with this in mind, it completely changes how you watch it. And do you remember the go home like March to WrestleMania 8 show where Hogan and Vince do that sit down?
I love it
Before.
too. Yes.
So, wait, James, I don't want to steal the thunder.
No, no, man, you go ahead.
Hogan was never intending it to be this is my last match. And Vince kind of goes rogue in the interview and says this could be the last time we see Hulk Hogan. And
Oh,
if you watch it, just for a second, Hogan is like, what? But then composes himself and just does, goes on. But when you look at that, you're going, right, okay, so he has to because the book also covers a lot of the kind of Arsenio Hall appearance, Vince not wanting him to go on and lie because it was so obvious that he'd taken steroids on, more than one occasion. So, that was August of 91. So think about the deterioration all the way to March of 92. Hogan getting booed at the Rumble with Sid.
hmm.
There's all this stuff. And then, right as, WrestleMania is coming up, it's like, oh, it's your last match potentially. And so anybody who watches that interview again, it gives you a whole new dynamic on it.
And just for sort of clarification, that Hogan obviously knew he was going away for a little while. Like that, let's not pretend he didn't know that. But what I don't think was expecting was Vince saying, it's essentially it might be his retirement match, the last time you ever see him. And Hogan's like, whoa, whoa, hang on a minute, this isn't really what we've talked about. But then they hadn't really talked a great deal anyway, because the relationship was so poor at that point. And Vince was really mad about the Arsenio Hall thing because it just caused him this shitstorm, and Hogan became the lightning rod, and Vince kind of went back and forth with him as well, Hogan, it's still Hogan, right? People will forget about it, but they didn't, because it just became scandal after scandal after scandal. And, then all the various sort of TV shows picked up on the other scandals that didn't involve Hogan, but it shined this spotlight on the WWF to the point where it was like, we need to get Hogan and anyone who looks like Hogan or like they're taking anything, get them out the spotlight. Hence the name of the book, Titan Shrinking. It's not just about the size of the WWF as an entity shrinking, but the roster obviously shrinking as well. So that's where it comes in. But yeah, I mean, it was just a wild time for Vince to deal with that, and for Hogan, yeah, I mean, I guess he was filming stuff and doing other things as well, so he was fine, and he was always going to come back, but he was blindsided by that for sure.
And we assume, and again, I wasn't there, but we assume that Vince was trying to promote it like it might be Hogan's last one to try to push those last minute pay-per-view buys. Like, we don't want to miss Hulk Hogan's last WrestleMania. So it might not have been like, hey, I'm trying to force you out, Mr. Balea. But by teasing that this could be your last one, maybe we all make more money. But to your point, they probably should have talked about that and not just sprung it on him live, right?
You'd think so, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the only people who know what really happened are Vince and Hulk, and
Yeah.
Vince is never going to say, and obviously Hulk's not here anymore, so no one will ever truly know what the conversations were, but it's quite clear. You just have to watch it, through those eyes, and you can see that there's this. Whoa, I'm taken aback by this. Just it's half a second, but it's enough. It is enough.
I do want to ask about the whole Flair angle because it's something we haven't really talked about, but I think the timeline of what you're laying out makes a lot of sense. In theory, we know that Hogan went on the Arsenio Hall show in August of 91. We know that's when this roast happened and Hogan was kind of dismissive to the camera. We also know August of 91 is where, Warrior tried to hold up Vince for more money at SummerSlam. And that's also the first time that we see Bobby the Brain Heenan bring out the big gold belt to tease that Ric Flair is coming in. So there's a lot of things at play where I could see how Hogan may have felt like, I don't know, is he frustrated with me? And now he's trying to make room for Flair and force me out. And so maybe when they couldn't trust each other as much, that's when it started to get, I don't know, maybe the relationship deteriorated. Is that the right word?
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously Vince was never going to go with Flair. You know, it's the whole political nonsense, isn't it? He's never going to have the NWA guy as the top guy for long. You know, it's always going to be who can we beat him with,
Right.
but it was kind of a time where Vince was trying different things and Hogan became very aware of it. And there's a few quotes in the book from Hogan relating to that of like, well, you know, he tried Undertaker at Survivor Series 91 and he tried Flair and then he tried Macho Man and none of it really worked. And you can tell Hogan's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about the way it all went down. And I mean, there was certainly a point. This is the thing. There's a lot of nonsense out there about this, and it's one of those sort of often discussed matches. People talk about it all the time, the WrestleMania Hogan and Flair match, right? And there's all these different versions of, oh, it was never going to happen, or it was going to happen, and Vince changed it, or Hogan wouldn't put it. There's all sorts of stuff. The reality is, there was a point where that match was going to happen, and they'd advertised it as such, but Vince had really turned sour on it when he tried running it on the house shows, and it didn't really work. And I think there's people are probably aware of this. There's a famous quote from Vince where he says, "We waited too long." To no one in particular. He just looks around, sees the draws not brilliant, and just we waited too long. And at that point, combined with various other things, which are all in the book of sort of what Vince's mindset is at the time. And if you think about it logically, how could it ever have worked? You know, what was the finish for that match if they did Hogan Flair for the title?
Right.
There isn't one, right? Because Hogan's gone regardless. Is he ever going to put Flair over Hogan, the NWA over the WF, the
No,
Icons? There's no way. Like anyone who
no.
knows how Vince works, there's no way. So he had to shift, and obviously he saw Sid and went, "Wow."
I, I, I do want to ask Kenny, do you think that maybe Vince was cutting Hogan's maybe Hogan felt like he needed to cut some of the opponent's knees out from under him, at least with their upward momentum. I'm talking specifically about the Undertaker because I'll admit I was familiar with the quote where Vince said something like, or Hogan said something like, "Yeah, they tried the Ultimate Warrior, it didn't work." That was referencing 1990. But
Hmm.
the idea that in early 91 or late 91 at Survivor Series, the Undertaker is one of the first guys to get a pinfall victory over Hulk Hogan. And so they take the belt off. They try this Tuesday in Texas thing. But that's where we get the whole narrative of, oh, Hulk Hogan was hurt by the tombstone. And it makes me wonder, was some of this really for Vince? What do you think?
But I think, if you, like you said earlier, if you kind of start putting the timeline together and then you read the book, it's a great question because the Undertaker thing, we serialized a little bit of this in Inside the Ropes magazine where, they do the match at Survivor Series. So, if any top guy like Hogan or Austin, right? Look at Austin as another example. Austin was so paranoid when he was clearly on top, miles above everybody else, that he was like, I'm not going to work with Mark Merrow. He just got powerbombed by his wife. That was a house show.
Yeah.
It wasn't a TV program. He was like, I'm not even going to work with that guy in a house show because he was powerbombed by his wife. So if you're Hogan and they're bringing Flair in, now you want me to lose to Undertaker and drop the belt, even if it's a couple of days. And the story in there, which is really like it makes you feel for Mark Calloway,
Yes.
is that you know Hogan arrives at the arena and says, "Oh, my neck's sore, my neck's sore." And if you're Taker, you're a young guy and you're wrestling Hulk Hogan, you're not, you're gonna be, oh God, is I better be careful. Then you're super careful to the point where Hogan's head looks about 2 miles above the
Yes.
mat, right?
Yes.
Because he's protecting him. He doesn't want to do anything, and then Hogan pretends he got hurt when we go to the back. And one of the things in the book that I think we wouldn't really realize unless we're pointed out is that when Hogan comes back and he says he's hurt, there's no instant replay. Mark Calloway can't watch that back.
Right.
So he has to sit with that and, be like, did I hurt him? And then when you figure out that Hogan's basically talking shit, that's tough. And you're also not a big enough star that you can really do anything back to him. So you have to kind of navigate this whole political landscape, which Hogan obviously was, that's what he was doing. I mean, even like the end of the 92 Rumble where, Sid gets
Yes.
cheered over Hogan. Obviously, all replays that was taken away. I could see a scenario where Hogan's like, I'm not happy about that. I'm
Yeah.
not happy that Sid got cheered and I got booed. That shouldn't be out there. So I think that Hogan was probably feeling quite. But if you look at it objectively, Hogan got a lot of passes that other people didn't get.
Yeah.
And the big example that's in the book, right, is that Hogan doesn't have, thanks to Jerry McDevitt, Hogan doesn't have to testify at the Dr. George Zahorian trial. He gets, Jerry McDevitt gets him off from having to, because if he'd had to testify, that would have been a disaster for Hogan
It would hurt the
because
brand.
he would have had to be on the stand, talking about steroids. But Roddy Piper, to throw to James, wasn't so lucky, and he didn't get the same, treatment, and he was told he had to go and testify.
Yeah, Piper was really annoyed because he was like, "Well, I'm as big a star as Hogan, right? I've been around just as long. I've helped build this company, and he had to testify, and he really didn't want to because he knew what a media shitstorm was going to follow there. So the night before, he was working with Undertaker and poor Mark Calloway throughout this book, right? But he's working with Undertaker, and Piper tells him to tombstone him on the outside. And Piper intentionally lowers himself, like pulls himself down, so that this time, like he did get him. He really hurt his neck and his head and give himself a concussion. And it wasn't Undertaker's fault at all. It was all Piper's doing. And the reason was so he could knock himself silly. So when he took the stand the next day, he could, he was barely coherent. So
Oh wow. My
didn't have
gosh.
to. So he didn't have to lie, right? So it's like, man, that's one way of getting out of a trial.
Just when you think you got the answers, he changes the questions.
Doesn't he
Told us
just?
that before. All right, listen up. I think we all know that most supplements are a guessing game, but you never really know what's in them. And even if they're tested for label accuracy, how would you know? Well, that's why I trust Momentous, and I know JR does too. Their creatine is NSF certified for label transparency and trusted by pro athletes and even the U.S. military. So we know what we're getting. And that's why Momentous creatine is helpful every single day. And I just want to be honest. My wife knew about this before I did. She's a big believer in it, and I know you will be too. You're going to feel the benefits in your daily life, just the way you feel at work, the way you sleep, the way you feel more productive. You see, it's not just for muscle gains. It's essential daily fuel for your brain, your body, and your long-term performance. Momentous Creeper Creatine is backed by the leading performance experts like Dr. Andrew Huberman and Dr. Stacy Sims. It's sourced exclusively in Germany. Creeper creates the gold standard for creatine, delivering the purest form, creatine monohydrate, that rigorously is washed and never cut with fillers. Every batch is independently tested for purity, safety, and label accuracy, and it even gets the NSF certified for sport. How about that? That's why it's trusted by Olympic athletes, pro teams, and yes, even the United States military. They've even got these brand new travel packs now in a lemon flavor that I totally dig. It's making staying consistent effortless. They're naturally flavored, they're perfectly portioned, and they're easy to mix with water anytime, anywhere. With more than 2,000 five-star reviews and over 112,000 customers who've seen the results firsthand, I think we can all agree that with Momentous, the fundamentals are done right. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off your first subscription order with the promo code JR. Go right now to livemomentous.com and use the promo code JR for up to 35% off your first subscription order. That's livemomentous.com and the promo code is JR. The The domain again is livemomentous.com, livemomentous.com with the promo code JR.
That's the stuff that's like, on one hand, Hogan's really upset because he feels hard done by because, I remember there was a quote at some point where Linda Hogan had said, you should own the company with Vince
Yeah.
because you did so much. So I'm assuming through their relationship the whole time, Vince felt like I made you really, and then Hogan's thinking, well, without me, you wouldn't have
Yeah.
what you have. So there's a constant kind of battle there. And then even when Vince is doing things like, okay, using Jerry McDevitt to get him out of the trial and stuff, for Hogan, it's like, it's not enough. You
Right.
need to he's the belle of the ball. He has to be courted. He has to be made to feel great. So it's like, yeah, it's just this constant thing. And it's a really interesting kind of dynamic to read throughout the book of how that goes. And then, like James said, how after WrestleMania 8 do they recover? And one of the other things in the book is because it's a story that's kind of been out there for a long time, and I've kind of believed the BS version is Sid. When Sid left after WrestleMania 8, we all think we know the story because Sid's told it in a certain way, but Sid hasn't been telling the real story.
So essentially, what happened with Sid, and it actually comes down to something you mentioned there, Kenny, at the Rumble. Hogan wasn't happy that he got booed at all, and he felt it had been booked in a way to make him look bad. And Hogan has a little bit of a tantrum backstage, and Sid sees this, realizes at that point that he's going to be the one working with Hogan, and he's just like, man, it wasn't worth me leaving softball for, right? So he goes to speak with Vince that night at the Rumble and shakes his hand and says, Vince, thank you for everything, but I'm going, I'm leaving. And Vince is like, whoa, hold on a minute, pal, right? And Sid sort of, he's annoyed that he's not getting paid as much as he thought he was going to do. He thought he would come in as a headliner and he'd be the top star and make all this money. And that hadn't really happened yet. So then he sees this thing with Hogan and he's quite, he's aware enough to go, there's something going on here that I don't want to be in the middle of, this political to and fro. So I just want to go. I just want to go home and obviously play a softball, as he likes to do. And Vince placated him and said, "Look, stay through WrestleMania. Get your WrestleMania paid and let's not do anything too rash. Then you're going to be a top star." And Sid's like, "Okay, I'll stay through WrestleMania, but that's it. Then I'm gone." But Vince obviously knows if I can get him to stay that long, I can convince him to stay longer.
Yeah.
So because he's Vince. So what ends up happening is that Sid actually fails a drug test 1 week before WrestleMania. Now, I say fail. I think everyone knows this story where Harvey Whippleman did provided the sample for him. They used to carry them around, like the bottles. Someone had got hold of them, the ones that they used for the test, a bunch of spare ones. So they'd always have like a clean sample on them if they needed it, right?
Wow.
And well, they get wise to it, right? So Harvey Whippleman was the one for Sid, and he was clean, but they caught him in the act, swapping them over, I guess. Now, Vince had to suspend him, but it was the week before WrestleMania. So Vince was like, look, I'm not going to suspend you and cost you a WrestleMania payday. And also he didn't want to lose his main event a week to go is the real reason. And he used it as leverage with Sid. It was like, now I want you to stay, through the European tour after this, because I could suspend you and you could lose all this money, but, I won't do that if you stay. And he's like, okay, I'll stay. So now Sid's version of that is that he didn't fail a drug test after WrestleMania, which is true, he didn't. But what ends up happening is he gets suspended for that failed drugs test later on when he walks out because of an argument over an angle with Ultimate Warrior that he didn't want to do. So when he walked out of the building and refused to do whatever the booking was, that's when Vince was like, remember that suspension that I didn't give you? Well, here it is. So that's where the story becomes conflated and confused and why there's a bunch of different versions of it. So it was, and a lot of the books like that, it's stories that people know, but it's breaking into the sort of the minutiae and the detail and finding out the things that make it go from, well, that makes no sense to, right, here's the logical narrative flow of what happened.
I got to tell you, the more we talk about 1992, the more I'm convinced this is the most interesting year in the history of the company, because you just mentioned the Warrior. Lest we forget, he comes back 6 months after being fired. Now he's going to come back at WrestleMania, and he's not long for this world. He's gone by the end of the year, right?
Because he buried himself though. So Vince and Warrior went back and forth a couple of times in '92 about Warrior turning heel because Vince could recognize that it wasn't working with Warrior as a babyface. He wasn't drawing, and I believe the Warrior Shango house shows were being outdrawn by Savage house shows, and which he didn't expect. Even though Savage was the champ, he was expecting the return of Warrior to be this huge thing. And it doesn't matter that we've lost Hogan because we've got Warrior back. It's fine. Obviously, he'd forgotten about 1990, but a couple of years had passed, I guess. So what ends up happening is he wants Warrior to turn, and this is one of those again that the internet thinks, oh, that would never have happened. So of course it would. It's Vince. Like he'll do anything for business, and he wanted to turn Warrior heel at SummerSlam. That was the original plan. Warrior wins the belt, and then they go that direction. But Warrior absolutely refused. No, there's no way he would do it. And Vince kept he didn't keep pushing at that point, but he kept sort of needling at Warrior, like mention it, or like, if you turn heel, pal, sort of thing. To the point where Warrior, like Vince wanted to speak to him, and Warrior calls and goes, oh, sorry, Vince calls him, and Warrior goes, oh, is this about the HGH thing? And Vince was actually calling him to talk about turning heel, and Vince is like, oh, what HGH thing, pal? And he's like, oh, me and Davey, like, this guy's just been busted, and we were getting all our stuff from him, and we don't want it to be another Zorian, and so I thought I'd better tell you. And Vince knew nothing about it, so nothing about it at all.
Wow, I didn't know that wrinkle. That's a new nugget for me. That's amazing.
Really? Well, Warrior buried himself and tagged Davey in as well, just because why not? So, and then what can Vince do? Like he has no choice because he's about to be indicted, and he knows he's in a lot of trouble. The scrutiny's getting worse. So yeah, he had to get rid of them. But yeah, Warrior. I mean, look, Vince would have found out, I guess. I would think that story would have got to him at some point, but only if this guy spoke and said, "Oh yeah, I was providing for all these guys," which he might not have.
And that's also the time period when we see Vince sort of shift gears from the larger than life personas to we're going to have more technical wrestling. And it does feel like a paradigm shift. Bret Hart becomes the champion, and it's not at a major pay-per-view. It's definitely a transitional year for the company. And I wonder how much of that is because of the lawsuits. Now we've mentioned the steroid trial, but there is another lawsuit happening in the background, or at least an investigation, right?
There's loads. Which one are you referring to specifically?
Well, there's a Ring Boy scandal that got a lot of TV time.
That one was rough. Whether I'm not convinced that one specifically had anything to do with why they changed direction in terms of
of course not. That was
the
steroid,
guys.
but I'm just saying the idea that Vince is looking for another hit. He can't find another Warrior.
Right.
He can't find another Hogan. The Undertaker thing didn't work. Flair didn't work. Okay, we're going to go with Bret Hart. But as he's trying all these new things, he's also battling on the legal front too.
Yeah, legal stuff was constant throughout the year. It was one thing after another. It was, it was the Ring Boys, and then it was Murray Hodgson, and then it was Rita Chatterton, and then Barry Orton, and even though the Barry Orton thing wasn't really in WF, but it was all of these things at once. And Vince obviously goes quite famously on Donahue and tries to field that one. Doesn't do brilliantly because he plays his Mr. McMahon heel character from in the future on that one, and doesn't get a lot of sympathy. But in terms of the Bret thing, the reason behind that was because Vince realized that the US was in trouble and he wasn't drawing anymore. So he said, well, we need somebody who can draw in a different place. And the two options were either South America and Mexico or Europe. And that's why he had this list, and the top two on the list, and people never believe this, but the top two on the list were Bret Hart and Tito Santana. And people go, well, Tito was El Matador, and he was, basically a jobber in '92. It's like, well, it doesn't matter. With the machine behind him, it makes no difference. Just look at, Luger in '93 went from, nothing, just a mid-card heel really to this superstar in theory. And he'd have done the same thing with Tito. But the idea was that if he went with Tito, then they'd move into South America and Mexico and could essentially become a promotion based down there because they're new there still and they haven't killed that territory yet. But obviously there was logistical problems with that. They didn't believe that financially it'd necessarily be a good fit. The peso was really weak at the time. And in Europe, they were booming. And Bret Hart was huge in Europe and also in Canada. So the option was Bret, and it made a lot of sense. And with the whole house show change, again, people question that. Why did Bret win the belt there? Well, that's because Ric Flair was hurt. He was working with Warrior on the house show loop, took a back body drop, got an inner ear problem. I think it was like a little tiny bone in his ear was broken or moved or something like that. It was, and he like couldn't stand up without going dizzy, and he certainly couldn't wrestle without or take a bump without going dizzy. So he knew he was losing the belt to Bret at some point, but he called Vince and said, "Look, I've got to lose the belt to Bret now. I can't work." And Vince said, "Well, can you at least hold out a day or two till we get to TV? Because then at least I can film it. Then the cameras will be there, and it's in Canada." So it just happened that was the case, and otherwise it'd have happened on a house show if Rick said no to that, and it wouldn't have been filmed at all. So that was kind of a circumstance thing more than anything else. It certainly wasn't the plan. The plan was always Bret, but the plan wasn't always Saskatoon.
We know there was a different plan for the main event of Survivor Series, but with now Davey Boy and Warrior off the card, we're going to have to deal with a Lloyd's of London issue to try to bring Mr. Perfect back. This is just a crazy year. Do you get into the Lloyd's of London stuff in the book?
Yeah. We go into it, and we go into why, Vince had no choice but to pay Kurt a lot of money to get him out of that, because Kurt was quite happy because he was getting a salary for being a manager and, being a commentator, and, the benefits that come with that don't involve taking bumps as well, So Kurt was quite content, I think, at the time, but also a company guy and realized that Vince kind of needed help here, and the chance to work with Rick, I assume, was part of that as well. And I think when he looked around, at the state of the roster, he realized, man, like I could be like top guy earning top guy money here because there really isn't anybody else anymore. And yeah, so obviously they persuaded him to do it, and it it worked out pretty good for a while there, maybe for a year. But there was certainly talk of, let's try and get Hulk back. If we can, that might be the time for Hulk, but that never could have happened either, because obviously also in 92, just to continue what a crazy year it was, Randy and Elizabeth split up, and it wasn't the best split. And as I'm sure you're aware, Liz was staying with Hogan, and Linda, I think it was on the shoot for Thunder in Paradise, and I can't remember what he was shooting then, but Randy drove down, confronted Hulk about it. There was a whole big argument about it, and he, at that point, that's when that relationship really fell apart with Hulk and Randy, because he believed that Hogan and Linda had turned Liz against him, and he was never going to do anything with Hulk at that point. Obviously things thawed a little bit in future years, but yeah, it was still pretty raw in November, so that wouldn't have happened either. But it was considered.
One thing I was going to say was just for people who are listening to this or watching this and they've never read one of James's books, I think what's fascinating to hear is kind of James's research approach to this, because there's so much stuff that it does seem like a minefield, but you've kind of got an approach, a strategy of how you get it done, or what parts of it you are allowed to say without giving the game away.
Well, you tell me what you're referring to.
Because it's like there's a lot of stuff that is not really super public knowledge, right? Like it's you're kind of putting things together and trying to paint a picture in a way that not everybody can do.
Sometimes the answer is not to talk to wrestlers, but other people who were around at the time. So because wrestlers have their version of the story, and I remember when I was doing the 97 book, I think it was, and I was talking to Jim Cornette quite a lot, and I said, "Jim, you've told me this one," and he said, "Oh, how long ago did I last tell you? Because the ending might have changed." I'm like, right, well, that's good. That's a reliable source right there. And then he was arguing with me. He's like, and Vince paid Razor for WrestleMania 12. So it must be 96. Vince paid Razor for WrestleMania 12. And I was like, fuck me like that. And I'm like, well, Jim, Razor wasn't on WrestleMania 12. And he's like, oh, yeah. And then the story changed because you've been telling that version so many times on shoots and whatever. And then he remembered the real version. And then you get the real version out of him. And I see that in a lot of shoot interviews as well, where people say a load of nonsense and the people don't correct them because it's they don't want to correct the wrestler, right? It's like, well, just you're never going to get the real story then. And if you push hard enough and sort of know roughly what probably happened, you can get the real story. But beyond wrestlers, certainly for like the SummerSlam and Europe stuff, talking to people who work behind the scenes made a lot more sense because the PR guys for SummerSlam over here, that's the biggest thing they've probably ever done in their lives, right? So
Yeah.
they remember that in detail. They remember how it all came up. As big as it was at Wembley, it is just that year. So it's very easy to mix them all together and not really remember, which, you know, is why Hogan thinks he was at SummerSlam when he wasn't and all this kind of thing. So yeah, I mean,
because
there's means
there's
and ways.
there's two examples I always think of with James's books that I think give you a kind of taster into how he does it. And it's like if you read Titan Screwed, the '97 book, right? Montreal is obviously just the most over-talked topic, right? But he did write that book 10 years ago, so it was a bit less over-talked about.
It was still enough.
But you know, he was putting together all the stories of after the show, and he's talking to wrestlers, and he's figuring it out. But there was just like the picture wasn't fully coming together. So he got the plans of the Molson Center and drew it out of how the route would have been, where the office would have been, where Brett's locker room would have been, and through that, speaking to people, he can put the picture together of okay, so Slaughter says that he was tearing down all the signs to Vince's office, so Brett couldn't get to it. But and through looking at the Molson Center plans, he can figure out is that bullshit or is it real? And I guess the '92 version of that is figuring out where the Nails Vince McMahon fight happened.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because only then can you figure out who's kind of telling the truth, who's not, because I remember initially when James had written about it, and I was going, because I think a lot of this Titan book, you can picture it in your mind. You can picture what's going on. And I think the Nails thing, initially, we were trying to be like, you're trying to picture, okay, so some of the boys are here, but Vince is here, but then the fight happens here, and then there's people hovering, like, so trying to put it all together was a bit of a task.
All right, guys, let's be serious here for a minute. Life happens fast. You know, one minute you're driving home after work, and the next you see flashing lights in your rearview mirror. Your heart skips, your hands tighten on the wheel, and you start asking yourself, what do I do now? That's when you need someone on your side. And with the Legal Buddy app, you can connect with a local attorney in seconds, not hours, not days, but right when you need the help. Whether it's a DWI, a car accident, a criminal charge, or even just a traffic ticket, the Legal Buddy app puts real legal support right in your pocket. Imagine having an attorney on call, ready to help guide you through some of life's most stressful moments. And hey, by the way, this isn't a call center. This isn't a waiting game. It's direct access to a lawyer who understands your situation and your community, one who can step in right away. Think about it. When trouble knocks, do you want to face it alone? Or would you rather have the confidence of knowing a professional is already on your side? That's the peace of mind that Legal Buddy gives you. And here's how easy it is. Just go download the Legal Buddy app at legalbuddyapp.com. Register today and be sure to use the referral code LEGAL for your chance to win a $250 Amazon gift card. Life is predictable. Accidents happen, tickets happen, mistakes happen. But when they do, you don't have to go through it alone. The Legal Buddy app, always on your side. Download the app today and enter the referral code LEGAL.
Journalist does, you know. So it's, you know, it's nothing that a journalist shouldn't be doing really, but yeah, I mean, you've got to try and paint a mental picture for people reading it who maybe don't know, you know, what it's like or what it's like to be backstage. You know, we're lucky enough, all of us, that we've been backstage at wrestling events. We know what those are like, what the environment's like, what locker rooms tend to be like, whereas most people reading it probably haven't. So for me, it's all about making them the fly on the wall in the scenario and explain it in the best way possible. And with the Nails and Vince one, that was a challenge because every wrestler on the planet was there and in the room, right? And there was a couple of guys I spoke to, and I remember speaking to, I think it was John Nord, and I said, oh, you know, so-and-so said they were there, and he was like, yeah, well, that guy was also at Woodstock, and he was also at Elvis's death. If you speak to him, I'm like, you're right, I get it. You know, it's not a brilliant source. So, and you know, I think you and Bruce talked about it on the pod a couple of times as well, and you know, Bruce had his version of it as well, and you know, trust it to a point. I'll say.
Bruce wasn't there. To be clear, he wasn't even back with the company yet. He comes back after, but he certainly, repeated what he had been told.
It's at 92. Bruce came back in August.
He was at the first TV taping after SummerSlam.
Yeah, but this was December 92.
Oh, okay. I thought it was SummerSlam. My apologies.
Yeah, no, it was. There was a couple of different things that he was and wasn't there for. The first one he was back for, I believe, was the Flair Savage title switch that Vince made them do again, right?
You know what I just remembered? I remember now what we were talking about. The reason Nails was upset with Vince was the SummerSlam payoff, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes,
that's why I put
because
those together. Yeah,
Bruce was semi-responsible, but not really, because Nails had called the house, Vince's house, when they were writing TV. Vince and Pat and Bruce, it would have been again at that point, and it was Bruce who answered, and he's like, "Vince, it's Nails on the phone." He's like, "Well, I've got all this TV to write and everything's getting rewritten because Warrior and Davey have just left recently and it's chaos." So I'll tell him I'll talk to him at TV. And Nails is just like, "Tell him to call me back." And then Bruce either does or doesn't, but whatever, Nails isn't happy about it and thinks Bruce is semi-responsible for that and was a little bit sort of off with him when they bumped into each other. And now I know Bruce wasn't there for the confrontation, that much I'm aware of. I think he was. It's a strange old building, the one they were in for that confrontation, where there was like sort of these bleachers almost like down in a basement area as well, like where they kept all the equipment, and that's where the boys were. But then you had to kind of walk right the way through to get to the arena where they would shoot things for, like, by the ring for TV and promos, and which I guess Bruce and Pat would have been doing. So everyone's kind of quite spread out. So it was trying to put that together, because it isn't like a normal locker room, was a bit tricky. It was like, right, okay, well, these guys are saying that they were sat on a bench outside the room, but the room was also attached to the locker room. So how does that work? And it was very much sort of talk to everybody, listen to everybody, kind of draw it out and make it make sense and try and go, right, so how could Kamala have seen through the door as that was happening, sort of thing. And eventually it comes together, and it's quite interesting. Like, for me, it's one of those stories that before researching it properly, I'd always known about. Everyone knows about it, right? It's one of those famous wrestling stories. But when I was researching it, the amount of extra stuff I found was fascinating. Like, John Nord, again, brilliant source. He was good friends with Nails and drove to the show with him. And Nails turns to him in the car and goes, "I'm going to hit Vince tonight." And John's like, "Oh. Okay," and lots of people say that, right? "Oh, I'm going to hit Vince," but he knew Kevin, like, and he knew he was serious. And he's like, "Okay," and Nils is like, "I want you to make sure no one gets in, because I'm not going to get an opportunity. Like, just do what you can." He's like, "All right, I'll be there for you," and he was sat on the bench outside, kind of just making sure no one got too near, but at the same time, not making it obvious that he was involved, because he still wanted a job, right? And there was a point where he realizes that Vince is in trouble, but he also realized that Nail's in trouble because all the agents are starting to come in. So he goes in to try and make sure that Nails doesn't, because he's his friend, that he doesn't kill Vince and end up in jail for real. But at the same time, he also wants to make sure Nails gets to do what he wants. The agents away, while making it look like he's pulling Nails away. So just kind of getting in the way. It's just brilliant story. It's really good. It's really good. It's really interesting what he does. But yeah, I mean, the way it comes together it's a fun read if you like that kind of thing. If you don't like Vince, you'll like it. So
hypothetically, you mentioned John Nord a few times. I assume that we cover where he did or didn't go after SummerSlam 92.
He is not shy about it at all. He is not shy at all. He went on let's call it an acid trip binge with the London chapter of the Hells Angels, and ended up in some biker house, and he had a whole, like, whatever it is, a couple of tabs of the acid, and the guys were like, "Oh, like, be careful, it's quite strong." So he was like, "Oh, well, I'm a wrestler," and took them all. So that ended up in tears, very nearly for him, and yeah, they ended up a couple of days of debauchery and then came back. So yeah, he was involved. John Nord was involved in everything, just on the periphery. It was quite. You should get him on the show and talk to him.
I can't wait for people to check this book out. Tell everybody where they can find it. Is it on Amazon?
Amazon's the best place. Yeah, like you can get it worldwide on Amazon. It's available as well on InsideTheRopesMagazine.com. You know, if probably better if you're in the UK for the one, slightly cheaper, but for everybody else, Amazon's the way. And you can get it paperback or you can get it on Kindle. And at some point in the future, you'll probably be able to get the audio version as well when we get
Okay,
around to
all
it.
right. Well, man, this was fantastic, Kenny. What a hell of a book you guys have worked on together. I'm so grateful we got to spend some time hearing about it. I'm dying to get my hands on it. I'm going right to Amazon. I'm going to download it to my Kindle. It's called Titan Shrinking. You're going to love James Dixon's books here. But this is Kenny, speak on his behalf. I got my fingers crossed. The first of a new trilogy, you said?
First Menu Trilogy is already going very well, and I think that the best. I know I said it at the top as well. I think that Dave Meltzer. I have to give a shout out to Dave. Dave did such an incredible job. Has always done an incredible job, but specifically in '92. I mean, if you imagine week to week
Mm.
having to deal with all this stuff, and that's only one company with all the other stuff you got to deal with. He had an unwinnable task, right? Because when you read those observers, there's so much. He also doesn't have the benefit of hindsight or putting, going correcting things. He's kind of reporting what's happening as and when. But I think, this is, I'd said this to James. I said, it'd be good if there was a book that could cover the part of the steroid trial, the part of the Zahorian, the part of the ring boy, the part of all this different stuff. And because I mean, at one point, James was like, is this just going to be a steroid book?
Mm.
Like, is that all it's going to be? But, like you mentioned earlier, there's one point where you said there's so much that happens in '92, and at that point we'd only talked up until April.
Yes.
So, like, it's insane. So I think that people will come out of this with a much better, concise understanding of what went on in 1992. Just as a tease to finish, why did the feds all have what they needed, evidence to go and convict Mel Phillips, and they didn't? That's in there.
Hmm.
There's so much stuff. And yeah, I think people will thoroughly enjoy it. Even if you do know a lot about that time period, like I say, I think there's, even we will learn stuff about it. So, and I'm very glad that we got to do something on camera finally. It's only taken
Finally, I'm
us 8
thrilled. I
years.
can't thank you guys enough. I can't wait to get my hands on the book. It's Titan Shrinking, available now on Amazon. Let's keep our fingers crossed for the next two. Man, you guys did a great job here. Thank you for all the time. I'm pumped to see it.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, boys. All right. Real quick, I want to remind everybody, especially this time of year, did you know at SaveWithConrad.com you can skip your next 2 house payments? That's right. You'll get a cheaper monthly payment and no payments until next year. How about a little Christmas vacation from house payments? That's right. No payments in November or December at SaveWithConrad.com.